In this video, we'll explore some foundational considerations for making effective instructional videos. Our focus here is on instructional videos that require planning, recording, editing, and producing. So we'll be looking at the considerations and principles for making those effective. Although they won't require as much planning and preparation, these principles and considerations will also be effective for smaller projects involving simple screencasting or recording a presentation directly. What is an instructional video? An instructional video is a video made for the purpose of informing or providing instruction about a specific topic. These are common for training, teaching, tutorials, and professional development. Instructional videos have outcomes associated with them. For example, in this video, you'll learn about the foundational considerations for making effective instructional videos. Non-instructional videos may also be informative, but they don't have the specific goal of teaching a skill or a topic, and they don't have instructional outcomes tied to them. Other types of video include entertainment, interviews, marketing, documentaries, and so on. Our focus here is exclusively on instructional videos. So, what makes an instructional video effective? There are generally three broad considerations. First, it adheres to principles of instruction. Second, it adheres to the multimedia principles. Third, it follows effective design considerations. The rest of this video will cover these three areas. The first consideration for creating effective instructional videos is adhering to principles of instruction. While there are many important principles of instruction, we'll focus here on the roles of objectives, chunking information, and sequencing content. Because instructional videos are tied to outcomes, they also have a specific purpose that they are intended to address. This purpose may be to teach someone how to change the oil in their car, how to calculate change in a transaction, how to read their bill from the power company, or how to outline an effective argument in a paper. No matter the purpose, the video is tied to specific objectives related to that purpose, and there is an expectation that the viewer will know something or be able to do something that they weren't able to before watching the video. Information presented in instructional videos is chunked into groups. How these groups are designed depends on a number of factors, such as how the information is related logically, whether some information needs to come before other information, and the complexity of the information. In most cases, information is chunked by the presenter or the author through an outline, presentation agenda, or table of contents. More customized instruction will require more complex groupings of information. The bottom line here is that there should be some structure and logical grouping of information in instructional videos. In addition to grouping information in a way that makes sense, instructional videos should also present information in a way that logically progresses toward the objective of the video. This may mean starting with basic definitions or even foundational information, or it may mean beginning at a high level and being very specific about each step. The way a video is sequenced will depend highly on the experience and needs of the audience it is intended to address, but all instructional videos should follow a logical sequence to move viewers from a starting place toward the objectives. This also means avoiding any extra or irrelevant information that may confuse the viewer or add additional processing work as they learn about the topic. There are many considerations when creating instructional videos, from providing clear explanations and examples to making sure the video is focused at the appropriate level for the learners. But the big idea is to provide the viewer with a clear path from where they are to where they need to be, while also giving them everything they need along the journey. Keeping these principles of instruction in mind while creating instructional videos will be a great start to building effective experiences. Another consideration for creating effective instructional videos is to adhere to the multimedia design principles set out by Richard Mayer in his 2009 book, Multimedia Learning. These principles are based on scientific evidence of what works and what doesn't when creating multimedia instruction such as instructional videos. There are 12 distinct principles of multimedia learning. The first is the coherence principle, which involves avoiding any extraneous material in instruction. This includes extraneous images, sounds, music, and unnecessary words or symbols. People learn better when extraneous information is avoided in instruction. The second multimedia principle is the signaling principle. The signaling principle states that people learn better when cues highlight how the essential information is organized. Using elements such as section headings, agendas, or tables of contents and bold or italicized text signal important information and helps the learner better grasp what is being shared. Third is the redundancy principle. According to this principle, people learn better from narrations and graphics or animations when text is not present. In other words, narrating a graphic or animation is enough, but adding text into the graphic or animation that is being narrated adds extraneous processing and therefore inhibits learning. The fourth multimedia principle, the spatial contiguity principle, states that when words and pictures are related, it is better to show them near each other rather than far away from each other. This close spacing helps establish a sense of relationship as the learner builds an understanding of the content. Fifth is the temporal contiguity principle, which states that learning is more effective when words and pictures that are related happen at the same time rather than one after the other. This means that a narration or description concerning an image or a graphic should be shown with the graphic or image rather than after or before it. Each of the principles we've covered so far are focused on reducing extraneous processing to clear space for the essential content of the instruction. The next three principles are focused on helping the learner absorb this essential content as effectively as possible. This brings us to the sixth multimedia principle, the segmenting principle. This principle states that content presented in user-paced segments is more effective than a continuous unit of instruction. In other words, if the learner can stop the instruction or signal when they are prepared to move to the next segment of content, they learn better than when they can't control the pacing. The pre-training principle is the seventh multimedia principle. It states that people learn more deeply from multimedia instruction when they are already familiar with the names and characteristics of the main concepts. For example, knowing the names and general functions of the different signals and levers in a vehicle helps learners better construct a model for how these things work in the course of operating the vehicle. Providing some foundational information in an instructional video helps viewers construct an understanding of the topic so they can focus on the message and not get lost in where the various elements are best situated. The eighth principle is the modality principle, which states that people learn more deeply from pictures and spoken words than pictures and printed words. This means that animations with narrations are generally more effective than animations with text, even when the text and narration contain the same words. The segmenting, multimedia, and modality principles we just covered were focused on helping learners focus on the core material. The final four multimedia principles focus on helping the learner organize the material meaningfully and tie it to their previous experience. The ninth principle is the multimedia principle, which states that people learn better from words and pictures than from words alone. This means that anytime you explain an important concept, it's a good idea to have a relevant image, graphic, or animation to underscore the key ideas. The 10th principle is the personalization principle, which states that multimedia presentations using a conversational style are more effective than presentations using a formal style of language. This means saying your nose or your video in the script is better than saying the nose or the video. The voice principle is the 11th multimedia principle. It states that human voices are more effective for learning than using machine voices. This is in part because of emphasis, inflection, and tonality available in the human voice that is not yet present in computerized voices. This means that instructional videos should be narrated by humans rather than utilizing a computerized voice wherever possible. The last multimedia principle is the image principle, which states that showing the instructor on the screen can actually detract from the viewer's ability to focus on the content, so it should be avoided unless it is instructionally relevant. These principles are important to consider anytime you're creating an instructional video or other types of multimedia instruction, such as e-learning. In addition to the key principles of instruction and the multimedia principles, it is also important to consider effective design considerations for instructional videos. There are different types of design, and many different design considerations go into any artifact or project. If you're new to design, a great place to start is the Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams. The book highlights 4 important principles for making effective designs: proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. Each of these principles are critical for visual designers and come into play with instructional videos as well. Whether you're presenting a narrated PowerPoint slide deck, showing a process, screen sharing a step-by-step tutorial, or creating other types of instructional media, these principles and other design considerations will need to be considered. This section will cover design considerations related to shot types, environment, lighting, audio, and visual elements. There are a variety of different shot types, and each conveys a different feeling and different types of information to the learner. Long-range shots can invoke big-picture thinking and place the learner at a distance, where extreme close-ups can put the viewer right into the nuances of a task or a project at hand. In instructional videos, you'll often see long-range shots, medium-range shots, close-up shots, over-the-shoulder shots, screen shares, and action shots. Another consideration is whether the camera is above or below the speaker, and to what degree. It's possible to do a close-up with a slight tilt up in the camera for a speaker, or a medium-range shot from above as if you're looking down from a second-floor balcony. Each of these conveys different feelings for the viewer and can make the video more interesting. The types of shots you use will depend heavily on the information and the feeling you need to convey to the learner. Keep in mind also that most videos have a large number of cuts per minute, which is the amount of times the shot changes in 1 minute. Because the shot can change 2 to 4 times per minute in the average video, it's important to account for this when creating the shot list. Another consideration is the placement of objects and speakers on the screen. One common way to divide the screen is into 9 equal blocks that form a grid. This grid divides the screen into 3 equal sections, or thirds, either vertically or horizontally. This grid is important. We tend to think everything should be centered in the shot, but it's actually often more interesting to place the speaker or the object on one of the grid lines, or 1/3 of the way across the screen. This offsets the speaker or the object in an interesting way and emphasizes their context a little more. Placing speakers and objects in this way is referred to as following the rule of thirds. One final consideration for planning shots is to think about consistency and continuity. It's important to have consistency between shots, so be careful not to move things around on the set, turn lights on or off, or change clothes such as a jacket or glasses during filming. Similarly, continuity deals with the timeline of when things occur. If you accidentally show step 4 before step 3 in a tutorial, or your video shows a near-empty glass of water and later it's magically full again, these small continuity details can be distracting for the viewer. For instructional videos, issues with consistency and continuity aren't often very damaging, but they can definitely cause some challenges when editing and could distract the viewer, so it's best to avoid them wherever possible. Environment is another important consideration that has a big impact on instructional videos. Instructional videos often feature a wide range of environments. Some only feature the screen on a computer, where others may be conducted in an office, outside in nature, or on a busy street. Each of these environments have different considerations and challenges, but they all must be managed to make an effective video. Some considerations for the environment include the amount of activity, the presentation of the environment, and its relevance and appropriateness for the instruction. It's important to select an environment without a lot of movement or traffic that might distract the learner. Consider both the obvious challenges, such as people walking around or cars driving behind the speaker, as well as the more subtle challenges, such as trees blowing outside of a window. While it's important to attempt to avoid these where possible, it's also important to recognize that these things happen and real life is authentic. If you're presenting and your cat jumps into the shot or your child comes into the room, calmly address the situation and keep going. Your audience will understand. It's also good to curate the space that you're recording in wherever possible. Removing possible distractions and building consistent backgrounds for instructional videos can be a great way to improve the quality of any instructional video. Finally, try to make sure that the environment is relevant for the instructional topic where appropriate. Most of the time, the setting for the video is a standard office or an outdoor space, but sometimes it's possible to film an instructional video with a relevant setting, such as creating instruction about a dairy farm and filming at the dairy house. When these opportunities present themselves, it's important to consider the match between environment and the instruction. Other critical considerations for instructional videos include audio and lighting, which we'll cover now. Lighting is a critical component for instructional videos. For screencasts and tutorials, this isn't a big challenge, but anytime there's a speaker or subject on the screen, it's essential to think about lighting. There are 3 major types of lighting that every shot needs to be effective. These are key lighting, fill lighting, and backlighting. Key light shines directly on the speaker or object of focus from the direction of the camera. This is essential for lighting up the speaker so they can be seen, and may be the most important type of lighting for making effective instructional videos. Fill light is the ambient light around the room which lights up the speaker and the room around them. Backlighting is light from behind the speaker or object which helps provide contrast to separate the speaker from their environment. This light is perhaps the least important of the 3 in instructional videos. It's also important to think about the warmth and hue of the different lighting. Fluorescent lighting can wash out an image, where using lighting that is too warm can change how the colors on the scene appear. The lighting considerations and levels will vary by environment, so it's important to take some time in planning the shots and building effective and consistent lighting between shots. You will always want to test the lighting as well by making short test recordings to make sure that everything shows well. Audio considerations are perhaps the most important element in any video. A video with poor audio isn't going to be effective, and it's essentially impossible to make good audio out of a bad recording. Because of this, testing the audio and planning ahead is essential when making instructional videos. Consider using an external microphone wherever possible. Also, spend some time thinking about the audio wherever you're recording, and differences in audio between settings. Things we often tune out, such as fans, traffic, air conditioners, and buzzing computer monitors, can wreck an instructional video. Avoiding these wherever possible is essential. It's also a good idea to take a minute or 2 of ambient audio where no one is speaking. This will provide a baseline for the audio in a room that you can then add when editing the video later to provide consistency between edited cuts. Ideally, the speaker will have a dedicated microphone close to them, such as a lapel mic, a headset, or a microphone stand. Recording using a camera or internal microphone should be a last resort option wherever possible. Just like recording for lighting, it's always a great idea to record some test audio and then listen to it in the setting before recording the entire production. It's definitely frustrating to record a whole presentation or video only to find out that your mic wasn't connected or something just wasn't right. In this video, we covered some of the major considerations for creating effective instructional videos, including adherence to principles of instruction, multimedia principles, and design considerations. Planning for these important considerations will improve any instructional video.